Have you ever noticed this pattern? You care for someone deeply. You reach out first. You invest your energy, your time, your attention. Yet the more you give, the more they seem to recede. Hours stretch into days. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Why do they distance themselves when I offer my best? Here is the uncomfortable reality. The people who care for you most often appear distant, and it isn't because they lack affection. Human emotions, in the ways we process them, are complex. The mind is wired to balance connection with autonomy, attachment with freedom, love with self-preservation. In this video, we'll explore the profound psychological and Stoic principles behind this paradox. By the end, you'll understand why it happens, and how to navigate it with wisdom, composure, and inner strength. 1. The paradox of presence. How closeness can create distance. Imagine for a moment that you've just acquired a rare, exquisite book. The first days you can hardly put it down. You run your fingers along the spine, marvel at the crisp pages, read and reread with fervent fascination. But after weeks pass, it sits on the shelf. Its magic fades, not because the book itself has changed, but because constant exposure dulls the wonder. This is the paradox of human relationships. When someone is always accessible, we begin to take them for granted. Their presence becomes predictable, and predictability often breeds indifference. The very connection we value most can slip into invisibility simply because it never feels at risk. Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on impermanence, reminds us that life is fleeting. Each person we love is transient in presence and in influence. When we internalize this truth, our appreciation deepens. We notice the subtle smiles, the fleeting gestures, the moments of connection that otherwise drift unnoticed. Recognizing the impermanence of presence transforms familiarity from complacency into a lens for gratitude. 2. Silent love, when affection speaks in shadows. Not all expressions of love are loud. Some are whispered in the spaces between words, seen in actions, not proclaimed in declarations. Picture a childhood home where affection was rarely spoken. Perhaps love was shown in quiet routines. A breakfast prepared, a door held open, an attentive ear offered in passing. The lesson here is profound. Silence does not always signify absence. People convey care in the forms they know. Some are expressive and verbal, others are practical, consistent, subtle. Seneca warned that much of our suffering exists in imagination rather than reality. Before concluding that someone doesn't care, consider the myriad ways their affection might manifest, shaped by experience, culture, or temperament. True understanding of love requires patience and perception. Learning to see love in unconventional forms allows us to embrace the richness of relationships without imposing our expectations. Sometimes the quiet gestures are the most steadfast, enduring signals of devotion. 3. Distance as a measure, not a rejection. Occasionally, those who care most may step back, not out of cruelty, but as a test. They may observe how you respond when they retreat. Do you cling desperately? Do you seek reassurance incessantly? Or do you maintain composure, self-respect, and clarity? This withdrawal is often unconscious, a means of gauging emotional maturity. It is an opportunity for reflection. Are you rooted in your own sense of worth, or does it sway with the attention of others? Marcus Aurelius counsels us to dwell on life's beauty and cultivate inner fulfillment. When another's silence arises, the wisest response is not panic, but calm observation. By remaining steady, you demonstrate that your sense of value is internally grounded, unshaken by external validation. 4. The illusion of constant reassurance. Consider relationships in which one partner continually seeks affirmation. Do you love me? Are you sure? This compulsion often originates in fear of loss, of inadequacy, of emotional void. The desire for repeated confirmation becomes a loop, reinforcing dependency. But Stoic wisdom teaches that genuine strength arises from within. True love does not demand ceaseless validation. If someone loves deeply, their intentions and actions convey it more powerfully than any words. Reassurance, while comforting, is secondary to trust. When the foundation of connection is secure, the mind is freed from incessant questioning, allowing relationships to flourish in natural equilibrium. 5. Vulnerability, the hidden force behind distance. It may seem paradoxical, but the people who care most can withdraw precisely because closeness requires exposure. Vulnerability is risky. To open fully is to grant another the capacity to wound us. Not everyone is prepared for such intimacy, nor are they always prepared to handle their own emotional responses. A person's temporary withdrawal may reflect their own struggle with vulnerability, not your value. Stoic philosophy emphasizes emotional resilience. Strength does not lie in avoidance of fear, but in the conscious embrace of it. Understanding that retreat may originate in internal fear allows compassion to replace misinterpretation. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the gateway to authentic connection, and the hesitations it creates are often protective rather than dismissive. 6. Walls built by fear, not absence. Many who love deeply construct invisible barriers. These walls are not built to exclude, but to guard against harm. Repeated rejection, betrayal, or trauma fosters self-preservation. The distance you perceive may be a shield, not a withdrawal from care. Patience and empathy are crucial here. Seneca reminds us that each person carries their own burdens, their own fears. Interpreting these walls as personal shortcomings leads to unnecessary suffering. Instead, recognizing that fear, not lack of love, motivates their behavior, creates space for understanding and connection. Through empathy, you may gradually witness the slow dismantling of these protective structures, revealing the depth beneath. 7. Perspective. Understanding distance through reflection. When someone steps back, our instinct is to assume blame or question worth. But distance is rarely a simple reflection of your value. Often it mirrors their personal journey, their need to grow, to understand, to stabilize. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control the actions of others, only our response. Emotional reactivity clouds judgment. Clarity emerges from deliberate reflection. By considering another's motives without judgment, you cultivate patience, compassion, and wisdom. Sometimes the greatest gift you can offer is the freedom for someone to engage with themselves fully before engaging with you. 8. Selfishness in love, recognition without judgment. Not all love is selfless, and that is part of reality. Some affection is conditional, transactional, or centered on personal need. People may engage only when convenient or beneficial to them. Stoicism urges discernment rather than resentment. Recognize these patterns without judgment. Selfish love does not negate the possibility of connection, but it signals where boundaries are necessary. Investment of energy should be measured, guided by awareness of reciprocity and mutual respect. Understanding the spectrum of love allows you to navigate relationships without undue disillusionment or expectation. 9. The law of reverse effort. Chasing drives retreat. Have you ever pursued someone's attention only to find it retreating further? Consider the butterfly analogy. When chased, it eludes. When still, it may alight naturally. The same principle applies in human interactions. Obsessive pursuit signals need independence, often causing others to unconsciously distance themselves. Conversely, when you cultivate presence, confidence, and fulfillment independent of external validation, you naturally command respect and admiration. Stoicism teaches that self-control, composure, and inner abundance enhance relational dynamics more effectively than chasing or demanding attention. Those meant to be part of your life will gravitate naturally, drawn by authenticity rather than compulsion. 10. The supreme power of self-love. Ultimately, the most profound love begins within. Self-love, self-respect, and self-acceptance form the foundation of all other connections. Without this internal grounding, external love becomes unstable, subject to the whims, moods, and availability of others. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When you cultivate love for yourself, external rejection loses its sting. Approval is no longer a necessity. Validation comes from within. Self-love equips you to navigate relationships with clarity, resilience, and grace. It is the ultimate power, the most steadfast foundation upon which all connections can thrive. Self-love, however, is not a shield against connection. It is the lens through which connection is experienced most fully. When you are rooted in your own worth, interactions cease to feel like transactions, and relationships unfold with greater authenticity. You engage not to fill emptiness, but to share abundance. Presence replaces neediness, generosity replaces compulsion, and freedom replaces anxiety. Consider the art of listening. Many listen merely to respond, to assert, or to influence. Yet true listening is a form of love that requires patience and attention, a willingness to inhabit another's perspective without judgment. When you listen fully, without the burden of expectation or the impulse to control, the other person feels valued, understood, and free. This practice exemplifies how love, when grounded in self-awareness, can flow naturally without manipulation or overexertion. Distance, paradoxically, can deepen bonds. Absence allows reflection, appreciation, and recalibration. Think of the ocean tides, pulling away before returning, shaping the shore over time. Similarly, temporary withdrawal in relationships creates space for perspective. It allows both parties to recognize value, reassess priorities, and cultivate a sense of longing tempered with understanding. Stoics teach that absence can illuminate presence. It is in the spaces between that true appreciation grows. Emotional resilience, then, becomes critical. When someone steps back, the instinct may be to panic, to overcompensate, or to feel rejected. Yet these reactions are often rooted in fragile self-perception. By cultivating resilience, you maintain equilibrium. Your emotional state becomes independent of another's proximity or attention. You can experience love without dependence, connection without neediness, and intimacy without fear. In this way, the inner self becomes a fortress of peace, unshaken by fluctuations in external dynamics. The dynamics of love are further complicated by projection. We often interpret others' actions through the lens of our own insecurities. Silence may be read as rejection, distraction as disinterest, and a momentary withdrawal as abandonment. Stoicism invites us to examine these projections, to question the assumptions we layer onto others' behaviors. By discerning reality from perception, we prevent unnecessary suffering and foster clearer, more authentic relationships. Even when love is genuine, it may manifest in ways that challenge our expectations. Some who care most may communicate indirectly, act inconsistently, or require space. Their patterns are not always logical to our desire for reassurance, but they are shaped by histories, experiences, and internal struggles. Recognizing this allows patience to replace frustration, empathy to replace resentment, and insight to replace judgment. Conflict, too, must be understood through this lens. Disagreements are inevitable, but the response matters. Those who withdraw temporarily may do so not from disinterest, but from the need to process emotions and prevent harm. The Stoics remind us that composure and measured response are more effective than reactive impulse. When we meet tension with calm, understanding, and clarity, the relationship strengthens rather than fractures. Distance, when approached wisely, becomes a tool for growth rather than a source of fear. Consider also the interplay of freedom and attachment. Love that clings, that seeks to possess or control, is suffocating. The strongest bonds exist when individuals retain autonomy, when care is offered freely rather than demanded. By valuing your own independence and respecting the independence of others, love becomes a shared experience rather than a tether. The Stoics teach that attachment without surrender is a trap, and surrender without awareness is vulnerability. Mastery lies in balancing these forces. Even the notion of timing plays a crucial role. Emotional readiness, personal growth, and internal stability influence how affection is expressed and received. A person may pull away not because love has diminished, but because circumstances require focus elsewhere. Understanding the temporal aspect of connection allows us to practice patience, trust, and insight. Life, much like a river, follows its course. Forcing the current leads only to turbulence. The principle of non-attachment, central to Stoic thought, clarifies this further. By releasing the compulsion to control others' feelings or reactions, we reclaim our own tranquility. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means engagement without obsession, presence without desperation. This perspective transforms love from a source of anxiety into a source of growth, joy, and profound mutual respect. Gratitude emerges as a powerful complement to non-attachment. Appreciating the love that is present, rather than lamenting what is absent, reshapes perception. Each act of care, each gesture of attention, becomes a moment of abundance rather than scarcity. Gratitude paired with awareness cultivates a resilient heart capable of navigating the ebb and flow of intimacy. The dance of closeness and distance, giving and receiving, speaking and listening, reveals the deeper architecture of human connection. Those who care most are not absent by accident. They are often navigating their own inner landscapes, testing boundaries or seeking equilibrium. Recognizing this allows us to respond with clarity rather than compulsion, to engage with insight rather than fear, and to offer presence rather than pursuit. Even disappointment, when reframed, becomes instructive. Moments when love feels distant are opportunities to examine dependency, fear, and expectation. They illuminate areas for self-growth, emotional refinement, and resilience. Stoic practice encourages reflection over reaction, understanding over judgment, and mastery over impulsivity. Each perceived withdrawal contains the seed of wisdom if approached with patience and insight. Ultimately, the paradox resolves through alignment with self. When we cultivate our own sense of value, when we honor our emotional autonomy, when we embrace patience, empathy, and presence, the dynamics of distance lose their power to destabilize. The care others extend, whether near or far, can be appreciated without fear, interpreted without distortion, and integrated without compulsion. Love, in its most profound form, flourishes in balance between closeness and space, expression and silence, attachment and freedom. Those who understand this rhythm navigate relationships with grace, poise, and resilience. They do not chase, coerce, or cling. They engage fully, authentically, and wisely. And in this practice, the greatest revelation emerges. The love that sustains us most is the one nurtured within. Self-respect, self-awareness, and self-acceptance are not substitutes for connection. They are the foundation upon which enduring, healthy, and profound love can grow. By mastering the art of loving oneself, all other forms of love gain clarity, depth, and sustainability. Presence replaces anxiety. Patience replaces need. Freedom replaces attachment. And peace, the most precious gift, arises naturally from the union of self-love with mindful engagement in the lives of those we cherish. The Stoics remind us, external circumstances are fleeting, behaviors of others are beyond control, but the quality of our thoughts and the mastery of our own minds are ours to command. When we internalize this, relationships transform from arenas of tension into gardens of growth, connection, and understanding. And so the ones who care most, those who occasionally withdraw, who guard their vulnerabilities, who retreat into silence, are not absent. They are navigating the complexity of love, testing, reflecting, and preserving their capacity to care. By embracing this reality, we move beyond fear, beyond neediness, and beyond misunderstanding. We step into a space of clarity, resilience, and profound wisdom. This wisdom, applied daily, shifts the very way we experience intimacy. We no longer measure value by proximity, attention, or constant reassurance. Instead, we measure it by presence, authenticity, and the shared cultivation of mutual growth. Love becomes less about possession and more about harmonization, less about clinging and more about attunement, less about anxiety and more about grace. Through Stoic insight, we realize that distance is not always absence, that silence is not always rejection, and that the care we seek is often mirrored most faithfully when we cultivate it within ourselves. By mastering this understanding, relationships cease to be arenas of struggle and become expressions of clarity, depth, and enduring connection. If you found value in this, consider sharing it with someone who could benefit. And don't forget, a simple like goes a long way in spreading Stoic wisdom. For more insights on philosophy, personal growth, and the art of clear thinking, subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay strong, stay mindful, and above all, stay stoic. See you in the next video.